This is the new Insta360 ONE RS, a modular action camera that builds on the legacy of the original ONE R and brings a larger 48 megapixel sensor, faster image processor, longer battery life and redesigned mounting bracket. Hello guys, I'm Jakub from CineD, and for the last few days I had the chance to play with the new Insta360 ONE RS modular action camera. Rather than a completely new camera, I see this as a refinement of the original ONE R. In fact, this new action cam uses the same 360 camera module and the 1-inch camera module of the ONE R. So what exactly is new? First of all, the Insta360 ONE RS features a new 4K boost lens camera module with a 48 megapixels half-inch sensor and a faster f2.4 lens. For reference, the ONE R 4K wide-angle module has a smaller 12 megapixel sensor with an f2.8 lens. As far as I know, 48 megapixel is the highest resolution sensor in any action camera ever. So naturally, I was curious if the ONE RS really excels in photo mode. First, I compared JPEG photos straight out of the ONE R and ONE RS. After that, I compared raw photos from both cameras with the addition of the GoPro Hero 10. The raw photos from both Insta360 cameras were automatically processed with PureShot in the Insta360 Studio, and the GoPro Hero 10 raw photo was processed by me in Lightroom manually. To be honest, I did not see much of a difference between the 48 megapixel photo and the lower resolution photos from the other cameras. I was expecting more detail, but after zooming in, the details are all kind of mushy and a bit disappointing. The PureShot algorithm, although, seems to have preserved more dynamic range in the photos. When it comes to video, the new 4K boost lens camera module unfortunately does not bring almost any new frame rates or resolutions when compared with the ONE R. It still maxes out at a 4K 60 frames per second, 2.7K 100 frames per second, or Full HD at 200 frames per second. My favorite mode in action cameras, the 4K 4x3 mode, is unfortunately limited to a maximum of 30 frames per second here. The only new resolution is the 6K widescreen mode at 2.35:1 ratio, which is limited to 25 or 24 frames per second only. The module also can record active HDR video in up to 4K 30 frames per second. When it comes to picture profiles, I recorded most of my clips in the Vivid profile, but there are also a standard and a lock profile available. The next innovation is the new touchscreen core module. It now has a faster image processor, which enables the camera to apply the flow state stabilization directly in camera up to 4K 60 frames per second and save the video files as MP4 for direct sharing. If you remember, the ONE R could only apply flow state in the post-production when shooting in 4K 60 frames per second. The faster processor also allows for faster data transfers over Wi-Fi, in case you want to edit on your phone, for example. As I mentioned earlier, the 360 camera module is the same one as with the ONE R. It still maxes out at 5.7K 30 frames per second. I actually quite enjoyed using this module for the first-person view clips or for some invisible selfie stick action. For choosing the right angle in the post-production, you can use either a computer with the Insta360 Studio or the smartphone app. The stitching is of course still visible in the exported clips, but I found out that the optical flow stitching setting in the Insta360 Studio gave me the best results. In low light, the camera also sometimes gave me strange artifacts in the image. But that is not an exception. Most action cams I had do not combine stabilization with low light shots well, and the image sometimes falls apart. The good thing is that the battery module now has a larger capacity. Insta360 increased it from 1190 mAh to 1445 mAh with the new one. Although the faster image processor might drain a bit more juice, the extra 250 mAh more than compensate for it. In my simple battery test, I compared the new ONE RS against the original ONE R and against the GoPro Hero 10 with the regular battery. I didn't have the Enduro battery by the hand. All three cameras were set to 4K 30 frames per second 16:9 modes without any stabilization. I did not let the cameras turn off the screens and I cooled them all down with a fan. The GoPro gave up first after 57 minutes, which I think is mainly because of the much larger screen at the back, which inevitably drains more power. Next, the Insta360 ONE R drained the battery after 68 minutes. The new ONE RS managed to record for 88 minutes before turning off. Because of the larger capacity, the ONE RS battery module is now also thicker, so it will not fit into the original mounting bracket from the ONE R. Thankfully, Insta360 made a new bracket, and I have to say I quite like the changes they made. The new mounting bracket is useful as it makes the switching between different camera modules much faster. It pops open from the side and the whole camera can slide out. I tried to change the camera module with both the ONE R and ONE RS, and the whole process is indeed faster, which really improves the whole modularity experience. Other than that, the bracket should also help with heat dissipation and provide a wind cover for the microphones. Physically, both the ONE R and ONE RS with their mounting brackets on are a bit larger than the GoPro Hero 10, which has a foldable mount built in at the bottom. Interestingly, all three cameras have a very similar weight at around 160 grams. When setting up the ONE RS for shooting, I have to admit I was often struggling with the tiny touchscreen at the back of the camera, as it sometimes did not register my swipes and taps correctly. Controlling the camera via the Insta360 app is much more convenient, but it also drains the battery a bit faster. To sum it up, the Insta360 ONE RS is an interesting modular action camera. It fixes some shortcomings of the original ONE R. I especially like the longer battery life and the new mounting bracket for faster module changes. When compared with the competition from GoPro or DJI, however, the camera falls behind in frame rates and resolutions. If you are in the market for the most compact solution that can do both 360 and regular video, the ONE RS might be a good choice. On the other hand, getting a dedicated 360 camera such as the Insta360 ONE X2 and then a separate action camera from GoPro or DJI that will give you better slow motion when needed might not be a bad idea as well. That's it from me. Let me know what do you guys think about the new ONE RS in the comment section below. And do not forget to subscribe to CineD if you haven't already. I will see you in the next one.